So have you felt it? This weird disconnect? The stock market is just soaring. AI companies are suddenly worth trillions, and all you hear about is this incredible economic growth. But at the same time, for a ton of people, the job market feels totally frozen. Well, this is the story of what's being called the jobless boom. All right, let's really get into this because this is the big question on everyone's mind, right? How can the economy look so good on paper while actually finding a solid career-building job feels harder than ever? The answer, it turns out, is in a brand new economic reality. And that brings us to the key idea for this whole explainer, the jobless boom. Just think of it like this. AI is making companies way richer and way more productive. But all that new wealth isn't turning into the one thing that most people actually need. Jobs. To really wrap our heads around why this is happening now, we've got to look back. We need to talk about a promise technology has basically made to us for almost 200 years. A promise that, well, it looks like it's finally breaking. You see, for most of modern history, the deal was pretty simple. Sure, new technology would come along and wipe out old jobs, but it would always create new, and often better, jobs to take their place. Scribes who copied books by hand, well, they could become printers. The whole industry around horse transport was replaced by the steam engine, which created millions of railway and factory jobs. And more recently, typists were replaced by computers, which created a whole new world for web designers. This was the message, right? This was the core promise we were all told. Yeah, your old job might be gone, but hey, don't worry. Just learn the new skills, retrain for the new economy, and an even better opportunity will be waiting for you. And you know what? For a very long time, that was pretty much true. But then, things started to shift. Starting back in the 80s, with globalization and the first waves of automation, that neat little pattern started to crack. Factory jobs moved overseas or were just replaced by robots, and the new service jobs that popped up to replace them, they often paid less, had fewer benefits. So that promise was already feeling the strain, long before generative AI ever showed up. Which brings us right up to today and a massive economic paradox. AI is basically throwing gasoline on this fire, accelerating the trend in ways we've never seen before. It's creating enormous value, but it's doing it while pushing a growing chunk of the workforce to the sidelines. Here's the absolute heart of the paradox. AI tools are making businesses insanely efficient. Productivity is way up. Corporate profits are hitting record highs. But companies are figuring out they can get all this extra output with fewer people, or at the very least without hiring more people. They're pouring their money into technology, not into headcount. Just to get a sense of how huge this shift is, let's look at some numbers. Back in the 20th century, if you had a massive trillion-dollar industrial giant, think of a huge car manufacturer or something, they might have employed over 200,000 people. It took a giant army of workers to generate that kind of value. Okay, now compare that to today. A trillion-dollar AI or software company in 2024 might have just 20,000 employees, maybe even less. The AI economy is built differently. It's incredibly capital-intensive. It's built on silicon chips and massive data centers, not on a massive human workforce. And what this is doing is creating a stark two-track economy. On one track, you've got the AI insiders, the specialized machine learning engineers, the senior developers, the AI specialists. Their skills are in crazy high demand, and their pay is just skyrocketing. But on the other track, you have, a lot of other people whose routine tasks, whether it's entry-level coding, data analysis, or copywriting, are now being automated by AI. And for them, job opportunities and pay are shrinking. And this brings us right back to that feeling we started with. When you have recent graduates who did everything they were told to do, got the degree, and now they're competing with an AI for entry-level jobs, that's where you get this huge disconnect. The national economic stats look fantastic, but their personal economic reality is a real struggle. So the big question is, where does this all go from here? The future isn't set in stone. Broadly speaking, it feels like there are 3 potential scenarios for how this whole jobless boom could play out. And these paths lead to 3 very, very different futures. Let's take a quick look at what each of these might look like. So the first scenario is something you could call an L-shaped recovery. What that means is the economy as a whole keeps growing, but the job market for a lot of people just never really bounces back. It just flatlines. Companies have rebuilt their workflows around AI, and they just don't need as many junior or mid-level employees anymore. This leads to this kind of quiet, persistent stagnation, where people are either out of a job or, more likely, they're underemployed, stuck in gigs that don't really use their skills. Okay, the second scenario is where governments try to step in a big way. Here you could see some really radical ideas start to go mainstream. Things like a universal basic income or UBI to create a financial safety net for everyone displaced by AI. Or maybe massive government-funded retraining programs to help pivot the entire workforce to new kinds of jobs. Some have even talked about an automation tax on companies that replace humans with AI to help pay for all of this. These are huge, politically messy choices, and there are no easy answers. And then there's the third path, which, if we're being honest, is probably the most likely one. And that's just a messy hybrid of everything. Of course, AI is going to create some amazing new jobs we can't even imagine yet. But at the same time, it's also going to hollow out the middle, wiping out a lot of those stable, middle-skilled jobs that have really been the backbone of the economy for decades. It's a future of partial solutions and a widening gap between the people who are AI savvy and pretty much everyone else. Okay, so that is the big and kind of scary picture. But the most important question is, what does any of this mean for you? How are you supposed to navigate this new world? Let's get into some actual practical strategies. First things first, we just have to accept a really hard truth. The old formula, the one that said just get a college degree and you'll be safe, it's broken. It's officially over. It is no longer a guarantee of a stable middle-class career. We need a new playbook. So what does that new formula look like? Well, it's got 4 key parts. First, master AI tools. Don't just dabble, really integrate them into your work. Think of them like a calculator or spreadsheet. They're just a fundamental part of getting things done now. Second, move up the value chain. This means you got to focus on the work that AI is bad at. We're talking strategy, creative problem solving, complex human judgment. Third, build optionality. Don't ever rely on a single employer for your security. Start a side project, do some freelance work, build a powerful professional network so you're never totally dependent on one path. And finally, number 4, make learning permanent. The world is just changing way too fast for a one-and-done education. This really gets to the core of the mindset shift that's required. In the old world, your security came from your job title. In the new world, your security comes from your portfolio of skills and your ability to adapt. And learning isn't something that ends with a degree anymore. It's a lifelong habit. It's something you do constantly, every single week, just to stay relevant. So look, the takeaway here is pretty clear. The jobless boom is real, it's here, and it is fundamentally reshaping our world. The people who are going to thrive aren't going to be the ones who try to ignore it. They're going to be the ones who learn how to ride the AI wave instead of getting crushed by it. All those old promises are gone. The question now is, what new promise are you going to make to yourself?